Millions in Syria and Iraq are facing water shortages as the region's longest river, the Euphrates, dries up.
The Euphrates, one of the great rivers of the ancient world, is shrinking to levels not seen in living memory. Stretching some 2,800 kilometers from the mountains of eastern Turkey through Syria and Iraq, it has watered human civilization for thousands of years. Today, it is in retreat. In 2025, Iraq endured its driest year since 1933, with water levels in the Tigris and Euphrates dropping by as much as 27%. National reserves fell to among the lowest in the history of the modern Iraqi state, far below the usual seasonal norm. NASA satellites have measured the wider river basin losing freshwater at one of the fastest rates anywhere on Earth, second only to northern India. In the south, the river has slowed so much that saltwater from the Gulf has crept upstream, pushing salinity in Basra to alarming levels and ruining farmland. Iraq's own water ministry has warned that if current trends hold, the country could become a land without rivers by the year 2040. For the region that gave birth to the first cities on Earth, it is a sobering thought.
Euphrates River. People want to know, they've seen. The Bible talks about this in Revelation chapter 16.
The Bible contains a striking passage in which the Euphrates itself runs dry. In the book of Revelation, written around the year 95, the sixth angel pours out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water is dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. In the text, this moment comes near the very end of a series of judgments, just before the gathering of rulers at a place called Armageddon. For many readers across the centuries, the passage has been understood as a sign tied to the end of days, with powers from the east crossing the emptied riverbed toward the Holy Land. The imagery was not invented from nothing. Centuries before Revelation was written, the Persian king Cyrus the Great was said to have lowered the Euphrates in order to slip into the mighty city of Babylon along its drained bed. Most serious commentators, however, stress that Revelation describes an event at the close of a future tribulation, not the daily news. The text is genuine and ancient. The link to today's events remains a matter of interpretation.
So it's a long, long river. But one of them is very significant in regards to the event of the Day of Judgment, or before the Day of Judgment.
Islamic tradition holds its own well-known prophecy about the future of the Euphrates. It appears in the two most trusted collections of hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, which gives it the highest grade of authenticity in Islamic scholarship. In it, the Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said that the river would one day draw back to reveal a mountain of gold, and he warned that people should not take from it because of the turmoil it would bring. Classical scholars studied this narration with great care. Imam al-Nawawi read it as a literal sign of the end of time, while Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani discussed whether the gold would appear as coins, as lumps, or as dust, concluding that the word mountain simply expressed great abundance. He placed the event among the major signs of the hour, connected in some narrations to the appearance of a guided leader. In modern times, some commentators have wondered whether the gold is a symbol for oil, the buried wealth that has so shaped the region's fortunes. The narration is carefully preserved and taken seriously across the Muslim world. The falling waters of the Tigris and Euphrates have done something no one expected. They have begun handing back the buried past. In 2022, a severe drought caused the Mosul Dam reservoir to drop sharply, and out of the mud rose the walls of a city more than 3,400 years old. Archaeologists from Germany and Kurdistan raced against time to study it before the water returned, identifying it as the likely site of Zakiku, an important center of the Bronze Age Mitanni Empire. They uncovered a palace, thick fortifications with towers, and an archive of more than 100 clay tablets, some still resting inside their original clay envelopes. That such unbaked clay survived decades underwater was described by one researcher as close to a miracle. The city had been buried by an earthquake around the year 1350 BC, which sealed and protected it for millennia. Then, in 2025, with reservoir levels at record lows, the receding water revealed around 40 tombs, more than 2,300 years old, alongside pottery spanning many ancient eras. The drying river, it turns out, has become an accidental window into the deep past. The true reasons behind the Euphrates' decline are entirely modern and well understood. Around 90% of the river's flow begins in Turkey, and there, a vast network known as the Southeastern Anatolia Project has captured much of that water before it ever reaches Syria and Iraq. The project includes 22 dams and 19 hydroelectric plants, anchored by the enormous Ataturk Dam, whose reservoir is one of the largest in the country. When Turkey filled that reservoir in 1990, the Euphrates very nearly stopped for a full month, and tensions between the neighbors ran dangerously high. Analysts estimate that upstream dam building has cut Iraq's water supply substantially since the 1970s, with further projects on the Tigris expected to reduce its flow as well. Layered on top of this is a 5-year drought made far more likely by a warming climate, heavy pumping of underground water, and decades of wasteful flood irrigation that wastes much of what little remains. The river is not being emptied by fate or by some hidden hand. It is being emptied by dams, by weather, and by human decisions. In the summer of 2025, the ancient prophecy and the modern crisis appeared to collide near the Syrian city of Raqqa. As the Euphrates receded around the village of Al-Bukamid, residents spotted glittering flecks in the freshly exposed riverbed, and word spread with astonishing speed that the long-foretold gold had finally surfaced. Crowds rushed to the banks with pans, shovels, and even teapots, and clips of the scene swept across social media, many of them tying it directly to the ancient hadith about the mountain of gold. Then the geologists arrived. The sparkling material was not gold at all, but pyrite, the mineral so famous for deceiving hopeful prospectors that it carries the nickname fool's gold. Local officials urged people not to be taken in by the rumor, and no government body, scientific survey, or recognized religious authority confirmed any real treasure or declared the prophecy fulfilled. It was a vivid, very human moment, born of hardship and hope. In the end, though, it was simply glitter mistaken for gold. The people who study this most closely, both scientists and religious scholars, reach a clear and consistent conclusion. Environmental researchers emphasize that the drying of the Euphrates is the result of human activity, not divine punishment, and that every part of the decline can be traced to dams, drought, and mismanagement. Religious scholars, for their part, do not dispute that the ancient texts are real, but they caution strongly against reading prophecy into the daily news. One Islamic scholar affirmed the hadith's authenticity, while warning that such narrations require deep understanding before being tied to unfolding events. It is also worth noting that the river is not on a strictly one-way path. After a brutal low point, the winter of 2025 into 2026 brought heavier rain and snow, and Iraqi officials reported their dams filling once more as flow began to rise again. The honest summary is this: the ancient texts genuinely speak of the Euphrates. The crisis facing it today is genuine, but the bridge between them is interpretation, not proven prophecy. And the most urgent message the river carries is about the choices being made right now.